I'm Mike AD, and welcome to the Delta League Podcast, Week 17. There's 2 weeks left to the Wheel of Fire tournament. Let's do this shit. Now, let's move on to Monday, where LA is hosting Vancouver and Detroit. And in this one, Vancouver wins again. Score, Vancouver 30, LA 28, Detroit 27. After LA player Marty Hagar took some liberties with Vancouver player Balbir Butker, that sent him crashing into the goal. He came up with a bloody nose. This just set off Butker, who, if he just stayed down, you would have been ideal. But he got up. He pushed Hagar. Hagar pushes him down again. Ref runs into for Hagar, and it's a yellow card for Butker and a black card for Hagar. Now, gladly everybody avoided being suspended any further. Just kidding. That's Hagar's second black card of the season, so he'll be missing for the first couple weeks of next year. And Butker collects his 4th yellow card, consolidating with his previous black card, and he'll be gone for 3 more games. Could have been worse for Hagar. Now, LA player Chip Chiozzi has come out as vegan. Not sure who cares or how that helps the team, but it only means that Chip will not be attending the $1 dog night at the stadium. Orcas player Bernie Pukila has told the management that he'd like to be traded right in the middle of a playoff push. Could that have just waited 2 weeks? You know how these things are dealt with in Delta League. He probably will be traded, but if I were him, I wouldn't sell my house just yet. Now, LA rookie Keith Ogilvie doesn't like his team's stance on beards. And he actually found it out this week when he showed up to the stadium with some growth. And he was told that he's not allowed to have it. Not a total prohibition. An unkempt beard is against team regulations, and it has to be trimmed. It would actually be kind of funny if the team actually required all the players to have a Mephistophelian beard and a twirling Guy Fawkes mustache. That would be in character for the team. Now, for LA, it was Keith Ogilvie and Marty Hagar with 7 goals each. For Vancouver, it was Didi Christofferson with 6 goals and Kofi Dominguez with 5 blocks. And for Detroit, it was Rad Marnane with 8 goals and Morgan Schur with 9 blocks. And in the end of this one, Vancouver picks up the 4 points. LA, 2 points. Detroit, nothing. Now, let's move on to Wednesday's matinee game, where Atlanta is hosting Boston and Memphis. And to no one's surprise, Memphis wins. Memphis 32, Boston 19, Atlanta 7. Now, Memphis captain Khalil Claudel got yellow carded in this match, along with Boston player Brianne Gu, who spent the whole game grating on each other to the point where it spilled over into mutually assured destruction. Take your yellow cards and go sit in the corner, boys and girls. For Atlanta, it was Enrique Hubacek with 9 blocks. For Boston, it was Dave Toro with 7 goals. And for Memphis, it was Alan Adam and Sancho Pastore with 5 blocks each. And William Meller with 7 goals. And in the end of this one, Memphis picks up the 4 points. Boston, 2 points. Atlanta, 0. Just kidding. 0 again. Now, let's move on to the Saturday matinee game where Dallas is hosting Seattle and Montreal. And in this one, Seattle wins. Seattle 46, Montreal 23, Dallas 19. Now, Dallas coach Filippo Awate reportedly showed up drunk to this game. To be honest, if I were him, I would have started drinking weeks ago. Regardless, he's been suspended for the remainder of the year, and assistant coach Ricardo Campbell will take over coaching duties for the last excruciating 48 minutes of the Lone Stars season. Now, this game was delayed as there was a small fire in the stands before the game. Apparently, one of the maintenance crew was smoking a cigarette and the ash ignited. Luckily, the damage was so minimal, only small numbers of seats were affected. To tell you the truth, I would have been better if just let the whole thing burn. What a disaster this season has been. Now, retired Maelstrom player J.J. Syverson debuted his new mustache on social media. And Montreal fans, always assholes, ripped him a new one. Come on, people. The guy can barely feed himself. Insane. Now, Dallas Lone Stars. Bernie Tully. He scores 7 goals. For Seattle, James Corn scores 10 goals and 6 blocks. For Montreal, it was Angela Carlucci with 9 goals and Kern Nataraja with 11 blocks. And in the end of this one, Seattle picks up the 4 points. Montreal, 2 points. Dallas, 0. Now, let's move on to Miami, where Miami is going to be hosting New York and Philadelphia. And New York's Kevin Vandermerve missed the flight. He was out of town. He ended up missing his flight back to New York, and he didn't make it to the arena on time. So he was scratched. This is going to cost Mr. Vandermerve a nice chunk of change. Then, of course, total morons do what total morons do, and they come to the arena, and then they get involved in the fucking game. It wasn't enough that he spent most of the season in the corner. Now he's gone for 3 games more. What an idiot. Now, Shred player Steve Fotopoulos was scratched for this game, but that didn't stop him from getting involved in the game either, which is an epically dumb decision, because Philly needs all the bodies they can muster just to make the postseason. Now he's rendered himself unavailable. Epically dumb. Now, for Miami, nobody mustered enough for them to get the 4 points out of this match. Jack shit. Now, for New York, it was Rhino Montalban with 10 goals. And for Philadelphia, it was John Holmes Galuccio and Tully Sykes with 6 goals each, and Suzuki Sato with 12 blocks. And in the end of this one, New York picks up the 4 points. Philadelphia, 2 points. Miami, nothing. Now, let's move on to the next game, where Denver is hosting Toronto and Washington. And Denver wins this. But holy shit. Denver, 69. 69 goals. A new Delta League record. Denver, 69. Toronto, 15. Washington, also 15. Now, before this game, Toronto assistant captains Gabriella Davignon and Carol Cavadon had a closed-door meeting with the team. I imagine it was about their dwindling chances of getting into the Wheel of Fire tournament and how they have to muster all that internal strength to get the job done. But it didn't work. And somehow they're still not eliminated. This has been a painful second half for the Towers. Now, Chevy Colella was injured in this game. He partially tore his Achilles tendon. When Toronto player Jermaine Jardetsky took him out strong style, it looked real bad. And this one is going to get reviewed because afterward, Denver player Randy Magnuson, he's trying to show concern, puts his hands on Jardetsky. Jardetsky punches him, breaks him open. Then there's blood running down Randy's face. He gets up, tackles him to the floor. They have to be separated. In the end, Magnuson gets black carded as well. That's a black card for Jardetsky and almost spells the end of Toronto's hopes making the postseason. As if their play the last month was any indication. For Carlella, he'll be out 3 weeks, meaning his season is toast. The reigning league MVP is leaving Washington totally powerless. See what I did there? Now, for Denver, it was Vince Howitt with 6 blocks and Ray Rogers with 16 goals. For Toronto, it was Jermaine Jardetsky, 8 goals before being an idiot. And Washington, nobody mustered jack shit, which is why they're in the position they're in. So, in the end, Denver picks up the 4 points. Toronto, 1 point. Washington, 1 point. Now, let's move on to Salt Lake City, where the Swarm are hosting Phoenix and Chicago. And if anyone is surprised by this one, Chicago wins. Chicago 44, Phoenix 18, Salt Lake City 10. Now, in this game, Chicago player Jamie Gilmore broke his hip after he went careening through the announcer table courtesy of SLC player Gilbert Ratchev. Ratchev just looked to the sky immediately after it happened. He knew what he did. Unfortunately for Gilmore, he'll be gone upward of 12 weeks. His postseason is toast. Same goes for Phoenix player Nick Hoja, who busted his jaw. A few weeks ago, he got his nose broken after a divorce. There's some divine retribution happening here. You know it. He'll be out 2 weeks, so his season is also done. Now, after this game was over, Pride player Finn Wehrle went on a profanity-laced rant that had the sponsors bolting for the mute button. He went nuclear on Gilbert Ratchev, made fun of Nick Hoja, plus a few bonus F-bombs. Now, pretty epic, but the epicness was matched only by the number of zeros in the fine that he received. Now, for Salt Lake City, it was Alexander Farner with 8 blocks. For Phoenix, it was Nick Hoja with 7 goals and Jackson Truman with 5 blocks. And for Chicago, it was Venus Pilar with 11 goals and Fab Whittlesey with 10 blocks. And in the end of this one, Chicago picks up the 4 points. Phoenix, 2 points. Salt Lake City, nothing. Now, let's get on to the standings. At the top, we got Seattle, 60 points. Chicago, 54 points. Memphis, 45 points. Detroit, 43 points. Washington, 42 points. Denver, 41 points. New York, 40 points. Montreal, 35 points. Philadelphia, 32 points. And the playoff line is drawn there. Now, right under there is Miami, 31 points. Vancouver, 30 points. Toronto, 30 points. Phoenix, 27 points. Los Angeles, 26 points. Boston, 19 points. Atlanta, 8 points. Dallas, 8 points. Salt Lake City, 7 points. Now, with their win, Seattle clinches their second straight Premiership Shield and sets the record for the most number of wins in a single season with 14. Now, With their second place finish, LA was eliminated from playoff contention. With Miami's loss and Montreal's second place finish, Montreal clinches their first playoff berth. Now, this leaves 4 teams competing in the final spot with 1 game to go. If the playoffs were today, Seattle would play Philadelphia and Detroit, Chicago plays Montreal and Washington, and Memphis plays New York and Denver. That is amazing. Now, let's move on to the goal leaders after week 17. Up at the top, regaining the lead, Rob Donoff, Seattle, 104 goals. Rock Weinstein, 103 goals. James Korn, Seattle, 93 goals. Isaac Parker Johnson, 89 goals. Stefan Grice, 88 goals. Evan Parawal, 87 goals. Laurie Moss, 85 goals. Venus Pilar, 85 goals. Larry McMaster, 79 goals. Pooh McCarthy, 76 goals. Finn Warley, 74 goals. And Star Palmer with 73 goals. The offensive player of the week is Ray Rogers from Denver with 16 goals. Now, let's take a look at the block leaders after week 17. At the top, Bernie Tully, 84 blocks. Alan Adams, 79 blocks. Vlad Millette, 78 blocks. Jackson Truman, 74 blocks. Cyrus Holleran, 70 blocks. Kofi Dominguez and Harlequin Butcher, 64 blocks. Frank Viano, 62 blocks. Anatoly Schaefer, 61 blocks. Emmett Ruan, 60 blocks. Corey Vignali, 59 blocks. Romeo DeRosa, 58 blocks. The defensive player of the week is Suzuki Sato from Philadelphia with 12 blocks. Now, these are the leaders in GXB rating. And we have a new leader. Holy shit. James Korn, Seattle, 5208. Vlad Millette, 5070. Rob Donoff, 4680. Laurie Moss, 4505. Bernie Tully, 4284. Rhino Montalban, 3834. Chip Chiozzi, 3216. Larry McMaster, 3160. Isaac Parker Johnson, 3115. Frank Viano, 3038. Evan Parawal, 2958. And Mohamed Karnasale, 2880. Now, before we move on to the league news, Morning Brew once more. It's Morning Brew. But it's not the morning. Who gives a shit? Now, word has come down on the Jermaine Jardetsky incident that saw Chevy Colella tear his Achilles tendon and Randy Magnuson sent to the back with 7 stitches over his left eye. He's gone for 13 games, man. The price. The Towers paid for this guy, and now he'll be gone for most of next year. LA captain Eric Rob Nicholson, he's made a remarkable recovery from his ACL tear that cost him most of this season, but he's coming back next week. It's too bad everyone else is either suspended or physically incapacitated. This is one team that needs a fresh start next year. Now, Toronto player Kroll Vitkovich could, who wrote this? Toronto player Kroll Vitkovich says that he'd like to play a little more. Guess what? You're going to get the chance. Half your team is out. You know this isn't going to end well for Vitkovich. He's changing teams in the expansion draft. Now, Chadwick Chow, better known as the Toronto Towers' mischievous mascot, Mr. Tower, is diabetic, which is why he collapsed so suddenly. Better take your insulin, Mr. Chow. Now, on to the mailbag. Matty V. I'm looking at some of the rosters of New York, Chicago, Seattle and Denver. And this expansion draft is going to expose 3 players off each team to the draft. If you were the GM, who would you expose? We'll start with the defending champs here. Seattle's got a huge problem here. They've created an impervious roster of superstar caliber here, and 3 of these players may be finding new homes by next year. I'd expose Emmett Ruan and Corbin Womack, but the third one is going to be hard. You've got players you've traded for, so I'd make a very hard decision to expose Marnie Johnstone. Now, Chicago, the issue is the 12-man roster has been depleted down to 11 because of the death of Cameron Baptista. So 3 of those players have to be exposed. I choose Jamie Gilmore, Fab Whittlesey, and Oscar Zenga. I think you can minimize the talent hit that way. Now, Denver, holy shit, did this team get good in a hurry. I'd expose the players that have the biggest defensive question marks. I'd expose Captain Mark Pinnell, Grant Nahn, and rookie Laura Greco. Offensively, they won't be replaceable, but defensively, I think equivalent players can be found in the draft or in the farm system. Now, New York, they're also reduced to 11 players due to the death of Carmen Thorson. Now, I'd cut ties with Kevin Vandermerve and hope somebody's dumb enough to take him. Mr. Mustache, Richard Mully, I'd let him go, and Chucky Sponga as well. This one question gives the armchair general managers, food for thought. And it's going to be entertaining when that expansion draft happens next year. Now, Rio Piero Barone. Now, I don't want to say this, but I can't believe the Maelstrom made the playoffs. My Shreds still have a chance to get in too. What are the chances Philly gets in? Because the championship final with Philly and Montreal would pay off huge. You got 4 missing pieces and you literally have 1 point on Miami and 2 points on both Vancouver and Toronto. And Toronto is a real long shot here. They can finish second because they have a victory tiebreaker over Philly. But remember, Miami is playing Salt Lake City. So no doubt Miami gets the 2 points. That would put the Shred 1 point back of Miami, meaning Philly would have to finish second in this scenario. However, they got a game against Vancouver and Chicago, and I would pray for second place showing here. Although a 1 point showing would vault you over Miami in lieu of the tiebreaker in terms of wins. Now, Vancouver's the real fun element in this race. I don't think either team is beating Chicago, which means if Vancouver finishes second, they finish with 32 and behind Miami. So Vancouver has to win outright in order to make it. Philly can finish second and vault over Miami and take the last spot. It's all in Philly's control now. Toronto can make the playoffs, and I know you'd hate that, but mountains would need to be literally flipped in order to do so, and it would need Toronto to beat Seattle, and they've only finished second twice this year, so they'd need Philly to get a 2-way loss or worse. So Miami could finish second in this scenario and still miss the playoffs. This is going to be a real exciting Saturday night, let me tell you. Now, here are the games and predictions for the final week of the regular season of the 2025 season of Delta League. Now, we'll start on Monday with Denver hosting Memphis and New York. And Denver is a team that has hit its stride at the perfect time. They've scored about 120 goals in the last 2 weeks. And though Memphis is hot and New York is a good team, Denver will win this hands down. Now, Memphis better take a good look at these two teams because there's a good chance all of them will be ready for a sequel 2 weeks from now. So expect a competitive game regardless. Now, let's move on to Wednesday, where Detroit is hosting Seattle and Toronto. And last week, Seattle became the best regular season of all time. And if this were some other league, they'd half-ass it and not come out with a full effort. However, this is the Seattle fucking Pirates, and they're playing Toronto and Detroit. And Toronto's last half of the season has been absolutely abysmal. They've had multiple players go down. They traded away Travis Valencia for Jermaine Jardetsky, and that has not bore any fruit. Toronto's hopes of a postseason die the minute the whistle blows. Now, Detroit has made the playoffs with a surprising season this year, but the second half was pretty mediocre. There's a good chance Detroit is looking at their opponent in the Wheel of Fire tournament, and if that happens, the Rock are screwed. Now, let's move on to Saturday's matinee game, where Montreal are hosting Salt Lake City and Miami. And this Salt Lake City team is among the worst ever constructed, and this offseason will be akin to a controlled demolition as they bring the building crashing to the ground and rebuild this franchise from the ruins. Now, Miami is almost assured a second place finish here, but they better not take their foot off the gas, because if they do, Philly will vault over them and Miami will be watching the Wheel of Fire from the sidelines after the historic season they've had. I think Montreal wins this game, but the Miami fans having heart palpitations on the sidelines with their postseason on the line has to be worth a few views. Now, let's move on to the Saturday matinee game as well, where we got Phoenix hosting Dallas and Atlanta. Here we go, a game with absolutely jack shit on the line. I'm taking Phoenix to outclass these teams, but the mystery will be whether Dallas or Atlanta will take the loss. If Atlanta loses here, they will set the all-time record for losses in a single season with 14 losses in 17 games. If Dallas finishes second, they'll go over Atlanta into 16th place. Oh yeah, baby. Here come the Lone Stars. Now, let's move on to Washington, who's going to be hosting LA and Boston. And Washington lost Chevy Colella this week, and the last few weeks have been very bad for the Power. It wouldn't surprise me if they lose this game and then go on to lose again 2 weeks from now. Fate has really twisted in a bad way for Washington, which is why I'm taking LA for the upset. Now, lastly, we go to Vancouver, who's hosting Chicago and Philadelphia. And if Miami picks up 2 points on Saturday afternoon, the tension on the West Coast will be palpable, because not only is Philly's postseason on the line, Philly's is as well. Chicago is a hell of a team, and I don't think there's a chance they lose this game, which is why Vancouver's playoff chances are slim at best. But the race for second place will determine Philly's fate. If Vancouver beats Philly, Philly is out. If Philly beats Vancouver, Philly is in, and Vortex fans cry a river. If Vancouver somehow wins this game, they're in. If Vancouver ties Chicago on top, Vancouver is in. And Miami and Philly will be out. So this is the game of the week. Now, join us next week on the Delta League podcast, where the action will undoubtedly continue. See ya.
This is Delta 2.